Update 5 is upon us, and whether you're continuing a save or starting a new, there are some things you're going to want to do and prep. Sure, your factory might not blow up spectacularly, but if you don't take the necessary precautions, the chances are what happened to Snut's save will happen to yours. Ah, beautiful. Nothing better than watching someone else's factory fall apart. And sure, I know a lot of you want to watch crashes, and again, we know that crashes will be easy to resolve, but why not get ahead of the game so that you only have crashes that you want? So let's look into them, and make sure to stay to the end if you want my tips for a new start in Update 5. Also, October the 26th, I'm going to be streaming over on Twitch, so if you want to join some fun or if you have any questions, we'll be starting before the release and continuing until late into the night. It would be great to see you there. First off, Jace has said countless times your current saves should be safe in game. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't take precaution though. The number one thing you want to do if you're hoping to try out experimental before it moves to early access is to make sure that you back up your saves in a different file. This protects your save and also ensures that you can go back to early access if experimental is too buggy for you. Now, if you are going to be using your current save, the biggest changes will come to vehicles, especially trains. So the following tips are going to hopefully help give you a head start in fixing your train networks, whether that's avoiding the initial period of repairing all the crashes or working on your line to save you a bit of time in game. So first, you'll want to grind all your trains to a halt if you run a complicated network. This will ensure that you're not running around fixing the crashes, unless of course you're chaotic evil, in which case by all means do continue. Another thing I should mention is that with the update, the chances are mods are not going to run, so make sure your save is in vanilla if you want to avoid any potential problems there. Now, though signaling is coming, it may not be unlocked with trains immediately. So if it's not a milestone, it could well be in the MAM under the Caterium or Quartz trees. So make sure that you have them researched first so you can unlock them straight away if your save is dependent on trains. And if you're running multiple stretches of single track where trains cross one another, I highly recommend either building a parallel track next to it along the whole line, or failing that, create stretches of lines where trains can pass one another. This is simply a line that departs from the main single line, then reattaches further along. It's simple to do and should be easy to add signals to for Update 5, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my video on signals, which will no doubt be coming pretty soon. One suggestion, though not necessary if you're nervous about using signals, could be to build a small test track as a controlled space to test signals before implementing them on your main track. Here's one that I've set up with a loop and a couple of simple junctions, and I will run 2 trains or maybe even 3 just to make sure everything's running as planned. Now, if your factory is dependent on trains for power, there are 3 suggestions which you should consider. One is create another power plant that isn't dependent on trains to function, just so that you have a bit of breathing room. The second thing I could suggest is create a large backup battery plant or fuel buffer, or 3, to rearrange your train lines into a circuit so all trains travel in one direction between the factory and the power plant. It's imperative that a factory that is dependent on trains can at least run temporarily without them, because no doubt that is going to be what happens when Update 5 is released. Now, do grab some coupons as well if you haven't been syncing items. Now is the best time to do it so that you can unlock the new buildables, which there are a lot of them, as soon as possible, because we're all going to be wanting to play around with them. The Dune Desert, as you know, is also receiving one big change that may affect your factory. A huge rock is being placed in the middle, so if your factory is located next to that particular drop pod, then I'd certainly consider making some space before your factory is engulfed in it. And as with all updates, make sure you have full stock in your storage area. You don't know how long your factory might be inoperable, so stock up in advance. This also will allow you to unlock new things and play around with them as soon as possible. And finally, if you are looking to use your current save, clear your calendar, because the first day is always a laugh and well worth making sure it's open so that you can join in with the community over on Twitch or on YouTube if the Coffee Stains event is on there, which it will be. Thinking about it, it always is. Moving on from that, there are a few of you who are starting fresh for Update 5. I'm kind of jealous because I'm not going to be, and if you are, I highly recommend getting yourself at least a coal power or building a buffer of power to give you plenty of headroom to play around with the new stuff. My second suggestion would be to improve your iron and concrete factory, or at least stock up on iron plates and concrete, because from now on you'll be using 2 iron plates to every 5 concrete for most factory like foundations, and I think walls as well. I doubt they'll change the actual stack sizes because now the stacks ratios are multiples of the required resources for foundations, but there's some great new build pieces which will no doubt see the early game having a much larger drain on your iron and concrete stock resources, so get that set up or get that prepped. And the final 2 things that I would suggest would be to start researching the MAM, like we mentioned before, and to start syncing coupons. These tips for a new start should easily help you get started with beautiful builds from the get-go, especially if you have some items stocked up in advance. But there you are, that's a handful of tips I've thought about, which I'd recommend taking prior to the update next week. Remember, it's coming out on the 26th of October to experimental. And hopefully with a little bit of luck and these preparations, your factories won't immediately grind to a halt or derail, one could say. That's probably a better word for it. You may even hit the ground running and find that you transition with ease. And make sure that your game's updated. They've just done the new engine update, so why don't you save yourself some time now and just download them. Do let me know, of course, though, if you do have any tips yourself, which I may have forgotten, and let me know them below. And remember, I will be over on Twitch Tuesday if you have any questions. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all of our amazing supporters who allow me to create this content, most notably our Solar Eclipse patrons, The Calamity, Cerebral Tag, and James Irwin, as well as our Lunar Eclipse patrons, Dixie Chris and Lord of July, as well as our Blood Moon of the Day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Anyway, guys, until next time, as always, ciao for now.